And welcome back to part 9 of this video tutorial on how to make R2D2. We are now going to be figuring out what is the deal with some of the elements in R2D2 that we couldn't see in our reference image. So to give us some reference, I brought in one of the other images that I found online of his legs, and as you can see, that little part, that the sort of the pipe, that support pipe that goes there, goes halfway into the leg, and then it has this element up here. So that's what I'm going to build. So the first thing I want to do, for example, is I want to make sure fix all the smoothing groups on the pipe. So I'm going to go to take all the elements, H, 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 and I'm going to go to the pipe. I'm going to go to edit mode, or piston if you will, and press 3 for faces, or Alt selects it all, and then Alt again, and then I'm going to have it put to shade smooth. I'm going to select the bottom one as well, click Alt, clicking on it, and then I am also going to shade smooth again. And towards the intersection, again right click, shade smooth. And you see, this is one of those occasions where 3D Studio Max, that would be preferable when it comes to this, because in 3D Studio Max, if I were to go right here and take this and this, I can give it this smooth look as it is in the top and the bottom. However, there would still be a separation here when it comes to that mesh. So if I go, for example, here, select that, and select the rest of it. Let's see, turn around. And then if I had to go right here and then put shade smooth, my problem is, as you can see, it just shades as one. So for the time being, since this is Blender, maybe I could also bring this into Max and do the smoothing groups a little bit more intimately, but for the time being, fuck it, you could just go into edit mode, select all this, and then just do auto shade smooth. And then since you're not going to see the top or the bottom, make sure you don't have faces here in any place that's not going to be seen. So I'm going to select the top one, hit X, and faces. So there you go. Now I've gone and made the pipe and kind of fixed it, at least with the smoothing group. So I am going to go and hit Alt H, outside in object mode to release to show everything, Alt H. And as you can see on the drawing itself, that piston kind of goes a little bit more up, so I'm going to go up towards the piston. There. I'm going to go to edit mode, press 2 for edges, select all of this, click in Alt, and then just kind of raise it up here so it intersects just like that. Yep. And this element right here, I'm going to do an intrusion so it kind of has that shape as well. So I'm going to go and leave object mode. I'm going to select the leg. I'm going to go to edit. Press 3 to select a face, and then I'm going to go to inset faces, push inwards. I'm going to non-uniform scale, make it a little bit sideways like this on the red axis, and then I am going to extrude it. Just so it kind of has that shape as you see right now in the concept, which is just like that. Cool. So let me see how R2D2 is looking. Turn off X-ray mode. And right now it's looking pretty good, but I think I'd take this part of the tutorial to kind of have a conversation about when and when you should not model something, and I'll give you a perfect example. If you look at the connection point on R2D2's leg right here, they have this big indent that goes into the mesh. So however, when you look at in relation to the mesh in the concept, it's not a very big indent that's been cut into it. So in this occasion, I have two options when it comes to that little element right there of R2D2. I could go ahead and I can cut into the mesh and actually give that shape and extrude it inwards, basically adding polygons to the mesh 2 times, because of course I'm going to have 2 legs. Or I could leave it as is, and when I get into a program, a texturing program, or maybe I do a high poly version of this that I used to make the low poly version of this, then instead of actually making it into geometry, I actually make it as a normal map, which when you look at it, it really sort of depends on the kind of game you're going to make. So let's say, for example, if this is a first-person shooter game where you could actually walk around and you could actually walk up to R2D2 and see right close up to his details, then there's probably a justification for you to actually model that element into his leg as opposed to making it into a normal map. However, if you're playing, for example, a strategy game that's from afar, or a third-person shooter, for example, then that's probably a reason why you should model it, and you should make it into normals if possible. So whenever you model anything, if you get into any situation where you have to really consider how much of this element are you going to see in the 3D model, and is it actually worth modeling and adding the extra vertices comes to it. Because if it goes down to it and you model it, and it's a third-person shooter game, and then your art director comes and says you need to knock some tries off of this, that's probably going to be one of the first places you're going to probably want to look to take some of the polygons off a mesh. So just consider that when you model anything. Do you really need it? What platform are you making this game for? What type of game is it? And let that sort of dictate your decision to decide if you're going to model it or not. But anyway, moving on. Next part of the leg that we're going to do next is going to be this small little connection piece that is in the connects R2D2's body to his leg. That shouldn't be too complicated, so let's go ahead and maybe side view. Yeah, let's go ahead and go to side view of R2D2. And let's assume that that connection point is as in the concept right around there. So I'm going to go ahead and just to kind of make it easier on me, exit edit mode. I'm going to take everything, hide everything, go into this view. And then, again, this is one of those decisions where when you decide to model something, you have to see what the visibility of this is. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Shift A. And then I am going to go ahead and create a mesh. It's going to create a cylinder. And there it is, as you can see. Go ahead and turn off X-ray mode so you can see it. So the first thing I want to do, of course, is I want to rotate it to the right orientation. So we got to see if it's this one. Yes, it is. And then the location, let's go ahead and raise that up a little bit, kind of where I think it's going to be. That's about right. Take the radius and bump that up. And this is one of these occasions that when you actually look at how much you're going to see this in R2D2, which is not particularly much, it's just a tiny little slither of his body, then you should really consider if this is worth, like, how many sides you should add to it. So as you can see, it's this tiny little slither. You're barely going to see it. So in this case, the width is actually, let's see, radius, bump up the radius. It's about right. Has a good radius, but since you see so little of it, I'm going to leave it at 8. And that should be enough to cover the visibility that you need for this object. So once you have that, I'm going to go to edit mode. I am going to go ahead and take and move it up to here where it's going to meet. I'm going to press 1. I'm going to go in vertice mode and drag that with X-ray turned on all the way here. Maybe a little bit more so it kind of goes right into the body. Cool, let's see. Object mode, and I'm going to take it, let's see. Yeah, let's see, set origin. The pivot is kind of got screwed up, so I'm going to set it to the geometry, so it's right center there, nice, and then I'm going to move it right here, and that seems pretty good. Okay, now that I have that little element created, then I'm going to go turn off X-ray mode, Alt-C, and this right here, these faces are not going to be necessary. So this one, the caps to the cylinder, for example, that and that, you don't need it, so I'm going to hit X, faces, and that's good. And then now if I go and hit Alt, exit edit mode first, and then hit Alt H, as you can see, now I have that element. And as you can see, there's a little bit of a difference, a little bit of a gap to where it meets. So I'm going to take that cylinder again, edit mode, go to edges by pressing 2. And I'm going to go ahead and take this and push it all the way inwards so it meets. Cool. Nice. And then I'm going to take that mesh, go to face mode, and right click on shade smooth. Good. And then I leave, of course, X-ray mode again. And then I'm going to take that little tiny element right here and I'm going to attach it to the leg. So I take my original leg model and then I'm going to hit Control and select the other one as well, or Shift. And then I'm going to do Control J or Control Y. And then as you can see now, it's one element. And I can do the same for that little cylinder piece. So I'm going to take that little cylinder and then Control J, boom. Now it's one object. And that just about continues the initial structure for the leg. I'm going to go ahead and pause this video now since about the 10-minute mark, and I'll see you in video number 10.